Thanks for listening to the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry, here to help educate, motivate, and put you on the right path to take control of your health through weekly discussions on topics in the medical field, public health arena, and in your community. And now your host, Dr. Barry.
And welcome to another episode of the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Pierre. I'm your host, Dr. Pierre, your favorite board-certified internist, founder of drbarrypierre.com, as well as the CEO of Pierre Medical Consulting, helping you empower yourself for better health with the #1 podcast for patient advocacy, affirmation, and education. This week, we bring you Dr. Stephen Noble, who's a cardiothoracic surgeon, who's a United States veteran of the Navy, and currently practices in Olympia, Washington. Lunch and Learn community, I like to, bring some established and esteemed guests on here. Dr. Noble has had various leadership opportunities and positions, including in several organizations, including Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the American College of Surgeons, National Medical Association. He's been published frequently, and most importantly, and I think the most important thing, especially for today's episode, you're going to learn and hear about is his passion for mentorship, youth advocacy, entrepreneurship, health education, civil rights, and most importantly, social action. And we're going to stress a lot during this interview about the action portion of it, right? Because again, I think a lot of times we talk about, especially as a physician, we talk about a lot of the healthcare disparities, but we don't talk about the actions to try to correct those. And Dr. Noble is doing an amazing job working with organizations on the ground to make sure that the actions are in play to make sure that we're actually doing something for these healthcare disparities. So like always, remember, send this out to 5-10 of your friends to listen to today's episode. If you have not had a chance to subscribe to the podcast, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review, especially for my Apple Podcast listeners, and join us for another amazing conversation here on the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. Today we have you, Dr. Noble. This podcast is sponsored by the Lunch and Learn Community Merchandise Store, living out the motto, empower yourself for better health. At the store, you can get your favorite t-shirts, coffee mugs, even wristbands, and more. For a limited time, you can get 10% off your next purchase using the coupon code EMPOWER10. That's EMPOWER10, EMPOWER10. Just go to shop.drbarrypr.com to pick up your purchase and get 10% off today. And remember, 50% of your purchases will be donated to the 5-Star Scholarship Foundation, a nonprofit organization for high school students. All right, Lunch and Learn community, you just heard another amazing introduction from a gentleman that actually had a nice opportunity to really jump on I think it was a collaborative live event with a colleague of ours, Dr. Don, really talking about, Black health, COVID-19, and this pandemic that is, I think we recorded it a few months ago, but it's still here, still strong. It's probably going to see us in 2021 as well, too. So again, Dr. Noble, thank you for joining the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be on here. Great to, support. And that was amazing to think that, we did that, back in April, and we're still, hot and heavy with it even now. And so, I think it's going to be with us for quite some time.
And it's so crazy because I think we did ours like right when we thought it was in the peak of things, right? Like I think we were like, well, it's getting like now it's like the fanfare. Now it's the thing to talk about. Let's talk about it. And then lo and behold, a few months later, we still got to talk about it because it's just, just alive and well here to stay. So, I have a lot of people who tend to skip over our introduction and, try to get right to the main episode. So in case they missed your amazing bio, which is pretty expansive, right? Give the listeners an idea of kind of, who you are, what you do on a day-to-day basis and, what, they may have missed if they happen to zoom by on that bio.
Yeah, so just kid that grew up in the Pacific Northwest in Portland, Oregon. My grandparents moved out there from the South to the Pacific Northwest during the Second Great Migration, and so grew up in Portland. Then was fortunate to go to. I always knew I wanted to be a doctor, so I went to HBCU, Xavier University, New Orleans, Louisiana, so represent XU hard. And so I knew I wanted to be a doctor, so that kind of set me on the path to go to a HBCU. And then from there, went to med school at Indiana University, residency back here in Portland at OHSU. And then went into the Navy, served some time in the Navy, ship and heart surgery training at the Ohio State. And so went back into the Navy, deployed to Afghanistan for about 6 months. That was cool. And then got out and have been in civilian practice, community practice for the past 3 years. And so just living the dream. And now I currently live back home of sorts in the Pacific Northwest, doing heart and lung surgery, robotic surgery. And so, just really passionate about what I do on a day-to-day basis with my family and helping other kids get into med school, kind of follow the path that, it took, for me to get here, because we all just, need some help along the way. And it was important for me to there were so many people that helped me get to where I'm at today that it's only right that I do the same and trying to help other folks do the same.
And one thing I like, especially when I get my other docs on the podcast, is I love to hear their journey because I think a lot of us, and I'm pretty sure you've seen those memes where we tend to see like this end product, right? We see this like established cardiothoracic surgeon, right? And no one never sees like the bumps and the obstacles and the trips and the falls that got you to that point where you're like the person you are today. So I love kind of hearing like that back end story that kind of led you there, especially for my physicians who go like into the military. Cause I always want to know, like, is it like, cause I have friends and family in the military as well. So I wasn't sure if that was something that like, it was in your set and sights as far as like, yeah, I think military life as well as being a physician, something I like, or is that something that kind of got, you kind of got tuned into during, maybe pre-med or medical school time?
It was one of those things that, I really got inspired by the movie Top Gun. And so when I saw Top Gun, I was like, man, that's pretty cool, flying jets, things of that nature. And so the Navy was always something my grandparents were in the Merchant Marines. And so they were always talking about ships. So the military was kind of in the back of my mind, but medicine was always something that I wanted to do. So in med school, med school is expensive. And so at that time I had a mentor, a family practice physician who was really great, really took me underneath his wings, kind of tried to teach me about the business of medicine. And, he was telling me about, your student loans. And so with that, I had a friend that was thinking about taking the HPSB scholarship. And so I talked to the recruiter, Navy recruiter, and to me, I like the idea of, the location of not being, in the Midwest or anything like that. I thought we were always going to be around a big body of water. And then the other opportunity of just being able to serve in the military, have, some of my student loan paid off or student debts paid. So I joined the military, and it was a great opportunity. One of the highlights of my career was definitely deploying to Afghanistan and working with the team that I worked with out there. Definitely the highlight of my career. So, but yeah, the military was definitely something that in and of itself is a totally separate sort of topic as to the choices and decisions to do that. But it definitely, for me, was a benefit and a help. I enjoyed it.
I love to hear that, because I think a lot of times, especially when I'm talking to my pre-meds who, when I even approach this, because finances is always a big thing, like, oh, about student loans.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when you even mention the military aspect, they say, well, I don't want to then have to, delve another, 4+ years on top of this long, because, especially when you're young, you think being 30, like, it's a long time. So they so, they're like, I don't want to, like, I'm gonna be like 30 plus by the time I get to do something. I'm like, okay. So I love hearing that, like, yes, there is some very tangible positive benefits, like even going that route. And are you still in the military now?
No, I got out. And so it's funny that you mentioned that, because, that was kind of the mindset that I had going into it, was trying to be as strategic as possible. So I'm all about, having a plan, or just trying to create a plan as much as possible. So for me, I kind of got into it knowing that when I was 40, I was going to be getting out and trying to figure out what the future, or what the prospect was going to look like at that time. So I always kind of had an idea of, as I got further and further to joining, and then as I started to get out, what the career path was kind of going to look like, or it's what I kind of wanted to do with that path. So you definitely have to go into the military trying to think about your exit strategy, because they have a plan for you, and best believe in medicine, other people already have a plan for you. So you need to have a plan for yourself, such that you can see how the two kind of interact and align, so you can make the decisions of, do I continue with the military path? Because retiring from the military for some can be a great thing. But for others, especially in the surgical subspecialties, you got to really take that decision to heart, very hard.
I love that you pointed out that you kind of have to have a plan for yourself, because even those who don't go into the military route, I think when they set their sights, right, in medicine, right, when they set their sights, like, I want to do blank, I want to do this for, whatever, the rest of my life. A lot of times when you ask, all right, so when you get there, what do you want to do with it? Like, it's like this blank stare, right? And I'm a program director, so I have residents who, are about, 2-3 years out of going into the quote unquote attending life. Right. And then I ask them, like, okay, all right, so when you graduate, like, then what's next? Right. Because you're already going to be an internist, but like, what after that? Right. And again, unfortunately, I get a lot of blank stares because a lot of us haven't really thought that far. Right. We thought, like, I just need to, I got to do what I got to do in undergrad to get to medical school. I got to do what I got to do in medical school to get to a residency spot of my dreams. And then when they get to the residency spot of their dreams and then they're done, they're like, oh, okay. Well then, like, it's this blank, life, because again, we talked about the time, life is happening while you're doing all of these things, right? And now you don't have that excuse of, oh, well, I'm a busy resident, or I'm a busy medical student, or I'm busy, like, no, now you got the time. Like, what are you going to do with it? So I love the fact that, you had that thought process, like, oh, I need to start thinking about it, like right now, what I'm going to be doing in 5, 7, 10 years, because like it happens, much quicker than we expected.
Yeah, and I'm just, I learned early on about myself is that, I get very anxious when I don't have a plan. So it just makes me very, very unsteady in the world as to, what's the next steps. And I need to be thinking about, because I know I work best when I'm, when I'm focused and directed and, and kind of know what's going on. And even now, I mean, it's crazy, with, the passing of Chadwick Boseman, at like 43, it is just like, it really brings home the question of what what your why is and what the plan is. And, on a day-to-day basis, am I working for an institution that, appreciates me? Am I doing the things that I need to be doing for my family, for myself? Does it, am I having the purpose that I really want, and or the impact that I really think I need to have to kind of make it worth it? And, for me, making sure I have a plan and really being thoughtful about that kind of helps with that, as far as, who do I need to speak to? Who do I need to kind of surround myself? What sort of avenues do I need to take? Training, things of that nature, all that kind of goes into, for me, it all falls back to just having that plan and having that direction.
What's interesting, especially with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace. It's definitely, it's tough, right? Because here you have such a young man, a brilliant man, phenomenal person just in general, right? That, it's taken away at such an early age, right? By a disease that, especially both of our, specialties are gonna like have to face one way or the other, right? And understanding that there's really like not much you can do, right? Like, and that's probably like the toughest like aspect, right? Like, because when I first heard the news, right, like I was like, damn, that sucks. And then like I slept on it, and I was like, wow, this is really bad, right? And especially when you start putting all of the different factors together, and the age and the disease process and all of these things, and then you're starting to think about, like, okay, then so of course, we're both on social media, so we're seeing like, well, how come no one checked them earlier? And typically, well, like, this isn't a disease we typically check for at that age, and like, and just more, especially in the medical field, much more questions than answers that we have. Especially because as private as he was, I'm seeing, multiple directors and friends and family who did not even know. Like, imagine being so private that they didn't even really know the extent of his disease course. So it's always so tough, right? Especially when we have this plan, right? And something like this or something in that nature kind of happens, right? And we kind of touched on it earlier. We had our kind of our live discussion with Dr. Don about, the pandemic, right? Like, tell me, what was your thought process, right, in the beginning, right, of 2020, right? Like your goals, your aspirations, and then unfortunately, what has transpired since, right? Because everyone I asked, like, the end of 2020 definitely didn't look like this in terms of what they were thinking, their goals, their plans, their aspirations, and all the things that, they thought they were going to do in 2020 that is not going to happen.
So at the beginning of 2020, it was really thinking about, I had some goals as far as I want to write a book. I had just got involved with a startup company. And so working with them, wanted to kind of have more of an active role in doing that. And then there was working with a documentary, Black Men in White Coats, working with that sort of team. Kind of came up, and so potentially looking to change positions. Go from my current where I was currently in Modesto, California, to try to go back to the Pacific Northwest. And so just seemed to be a time in my life in which there was a lot of things going on, and so it was all pretty surreal. So then fast forward to February, I was in New Orleans for a conference for the Society of Thoracic Surgeons. Now I'm in a conference, and the conference was about something in like thoracic surgery. And then I get the text from my cousin that Kobe Bryant had died. And it was just like, dang. And so it just seemed like, I remember the beginning of the new year, I think my son and I had flew out to Baltimore to meet with the team from the startup. And he and I we were working on we homeschool him. So he's kind of doing this alternative sort of educational process in which it was an opportunity for for me to show him what kind of like Shark Tank is for startups and all these startups were conscious ventures. So a lot of young Black men and women and women really going in front of a venture capital board that is looking at these people that have their startup ventures and trying to pitch the idea. So I thought it would be a great idea for my high school son. He's a sophomore in high school, to take him out there and kind of see it. And we had a great time in Baltimore. Met with the startup team and just had a real good time. And for them to see his kind of take on some of these startup ventures was a great opportunity for him. So, the year started off kind of doing, trips like that. And then, we heard about Kobe Bryant, and that just, it just seemed like 2020 went left pretty quickly thereafter. COVID-19, it was just, man. But through it all, things, in one aspect of my day-to-day sort of career, just seemed to be up in the air as far as COVID-19 was shutting down some of the practice.
Yes, I was going to ask, especially as a surgeon.
So for heart surgery, we were doing more. For heart surgery, it seemed to pick up because we were doing just really the urgent cases. But for thoracic surgery, for lung surgery, I started canceling cases. And this was back in before we really heard about it. We had the first case out in the Bay Area or in Sacramento and whatnot. And so I had started looking at that sort of process and hearing how that patient came to the hospital several times and always got turned away because it didn't fit the criteria. We just really didn't know a lot about the disease process. And I was very concerned with the reports that we were hearing from abroad that patients were having that 10 to 20% decrease in lung function. So I was very concerned about doing thoracic surgery on lung cancer patients, in which we're going to take out a part of your lung regardless. So now you're going to, potentially get COVID. We really didn't know about how you could or couldn't get it. And so some practices started to decrease as far as volume. And then I ended up changing positions. And so it was just really topsy-turvy for a little bit. But as far as doing the surgeries in some aspect, started practicing here in Olympia, Washington, and things have been going pretty well. But, with the startup, COVID-19 kind of demonstrated that for Black people, we really need to, we need to address some of these social determinants of health and healthcare disparities that, us Black physicians in the community know about, but, putting the weight and the money and the resources behind it sometimes seems to be difficult and really doesn't seem to help. And with the rates that we've had and the devastation that COVID-19 has had with us, it really underscores, the need for prevention, screening, and having Black people engage with the healthcare industry in a more effective and trusting manner.
And what's interesting, let's talk about Live Chair Health, right? And this, that was the organization that I want to definitely make sure our listeners are familiar with, because you said a point that was, I think is if you're an old lunch learner listener, you've heard this before. Majority of I'll just say, I don't want to say all, because some people I know. Majority of us, especially as a Black physician, are not shocked, right, that COVID-19 affected our community much more, right? Why? Because if you would have asked me, oh, what about diabetes? I'd have said our community is affected more. Oh, what about heart disease? Our community. So it's not shocked that another disease process would affect us more, because everything, right, affects us more, right? And we've talked, at length at some of the, the systemic reasons why that occurs. And I think the point you brought up was, yes, it's okay that we know about it, right? But like putting that action, right, into trying to change and improve it is where I think, we still need work on, right? So I definitely want to hear about Live Chair Health, and especially because you kind of mentioned in past kind of the startup company and, the goals and the plans. Like I said, it's definitely an exciting company. I'm excited to learn about more.
So, great. Yeah. So for Live Chair Health, me personally, my wife's a hairstylist. And so coming up, I've always had this, medicine, coming up, I always had this idea of, hair care and healthcare together. My wife has a stylist. She has clients that will sit up here and tell her everything, but those same things they may not tell their physician, what I'm saying? Or my wife is giving practically healthcare advice to her clients, and I'm like, the medicine behind what you're telling that person isn't necessarily there. It sounds right, it sounds good, but that's not necessarily, not necessarily it. So I always had this idea of healthcare and hair care together. So lo and behold, I came across a young man by the name of Andrew Suggs, who, if I could summarize Andrew Suggs and the whole mission of Live Chair, is taking pain into purpose, or making pain into purpose. And so Andrew Suggs is a gentleman. He's a young Black man who founded and is the CEO of Live Chair Health, who initially it was really about helping barbershops. He kind of came up as a young man that, really didn't have his father in his life. His father was kind of in and out of prison and really didn't have his father in his life. And so he looked at the barbershop as kind of like the Black man's country club, and really held the barbers in high esteem. And to that point, he became an entrepreneur and started a scheduling and booking app for barbers. Recently, he reconnected with his father, and he and his father started developing a good relationship. But unfortunately, his father had very advanced congestive heart failure, and it was believed that had he been able to kind of know about the prevention and screening and managing his healthcare, his father wouldn't have passed away at an early age. And unfortunately, Andrew's father passed away last month. And this is a story that Andrew has told several times. He's been featured by the American Heart Association for Live Chair. And so I've been fortunate and blessed enough to come to know Andrew, and really kind of just add my support with Live Chair and serve as one of the advisors and lead medical advisor for Live Chair Health. So Live Chair Health is really has a mission of really taking Andrew's pain and purpose and trying to extend it to the Black community as a whole, to really try to take the barbershops, the barbers, that trusted relationship that we have with our barbers, our hairstylists, and see if about delivering healthcare or providing healthcare to our community in a way in which we trust, in a way in which we feel comfortable. As as we've kind of talked about before, when patients come to see us, in the clinic, sometimes their blood pressure could be, 20 to 30 points higher than what it normally is, because the stress of, coming to see me, I got my white coat on. I'm about to tell them, I'm going to have to cut your chest open, or you have lung cancer. And so that sort of white coat phenomenon can exist. And based upon, that, visit, we'll put you on a hydrochlorothiazide, ACE inhibitor, and we'll start, ramping up your medications. But during that time, you may not be having contact with the healthcare industry or with healthcare professionals, and/or measuring your own blood pressure, things of that nature, enough to really give the physician good data. But what we kind of do know in the Black community is that, if we're going to the barbershop, if we're going to the hair salon, sometimes we're going to that barber every 2 weeks, once a month. We're definitely having more contact with that hair care professional. Now, if we can sit up here and get your blood pressure checked, get your hemoglobin A1C checked, get some of these other things checked, maybe we can start to see some downtrends in preventable health diseases in our community, to the point of, when COVID-19 hit, LiveShare was affected. But as we started to have these conversations on platforms like this with Dr. Don and, things of this nature, it really, we really kind of discussed, COVID-19 is really unleashing the fact of, how bad, things are in the Black community. With that sort of knowledge and conversation, it really presented the opportunity for LiveShare to kind of double down on that. And so to that point, LiveShare started offering, first and foremost, workshops, financial workshops for barbers, because barbers weren't getting the triple P. As much as all these other companies were getting the bailout from the government and things of that nature, the barbershops and the hair salons weren't getting that bailout. They needed some guidance through how do you navigate those waters. And, it may not be widely known to the audience, but the barbershops and the hair salons are like the financial backbones of our communities. I mean, when slavery had ended, I mean, one of the first businesses that we could have and that we could own, that we can control the market, was the barbershop. So the barbershop has really served as that financial institution in which we could, practice and or be the way that we wanted it to be. And so unfortunately, the barbershops and the hair salons didn't really have some support. So LiveShare Health supported some programs and workshops to be able to instruct the barbers on how to kind of navigate the SBA, the loans and things of that nature. And then it started offering COVID-19 screenings and helping the barbershops how to reopen safely, providing thermometers, and now rolling out a pilot in which what we're doing is we're collecting, we're working with 3 barbershops out in the Baltimore area, and really getting some great initial data on identifying those individuals that don't have a doctor and then plugging those individuals to see a doctor. And now these conversations are happening at the barbershop and being able to integrate some of the technology that we have with apps and things of that nature to physicians, to practices, and what have you, so that we can affect change in a positive way. And, with all these other sort of preventable diseases and topics, stroke, heart attack, cancer, it really allows us to kind of have that conversation. What Andrew likes to talk about, those crucial conversations that we need to have in the barbershop. Some of the medications that I may put you on for heart disease may affect, your sexual function. And that conversation you may not have with your doctor, but you'll have it with your barber. You may have it in that safe, confines. And so it's important to have those conversations that sometimes, that sometimes you'll have people ask you, hey, doc, can I get your advice? And it's something that's really not in your field, but they feel comfortable with you. You're one of them. And for some of us, that affects our healthcare. I mean, for a lot of us, that affects our healthcare. If we can't have that comfortable dialogue of our doctor, kind of understanding what we're going through, that's important.
And I can tell you, especially with, the pandemic, hitting as hard as it is, I can tell you one of the most sought after appointments once stuff started opening up definitely was not the doctor, right? It was definitely, all right, I haven't had a cut in 3 months. I haven't I think you underscore really the importance of that relationship that, people have, with their hair care provider, right? Because that's, again, I'm the medical provider, right? But people tie so much into their hair care provider, right? Their self-esteem, right? Their machismo, everything associated with it, right? Their swag, and even for the women, right? Like just the beauty and everything else that kind of just drips out once they leave. Right, that area. And it's fortunately, sometimes it's not a feeling that can be duplicated when they come to see me for a blood pressure check, right? Or a short, it's not, that feeling just isn't there. I think it's, imagine now, right? Take COVID-19 away, right? You guys would probably have to be in the shop saying all right, guys, this is when we typically would check for colon cancer, right? Because this is a topic that people are asking. I'm seeing the questions and I'm like, I understand, and I wish there was a centralized place, for you to go and get the information that you need, because, you're right. There's so many different, routes that you can get this information. But if you're in that trusted environment, right, that is your shop, right, and like, hey, when I come here, I come to kick it, I come to get loose, I come to, get myself better, right? Oh, and I get educated at the same time. Like I can't even lose on that. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
You hit the nail on the head, and this is a shameless plug for for Live Share Health. Is that to that point, we have a brain trust, a collection of Black physicians or physicians in general that get together to kind of help, work on some of the healthcare operations. And so we present that from the standpoint of, you're right, it is important for people to feel as if there's a trusted community or team out there on their behalf. And unfortunately, we've seen recently that some of those trusted institutions seem to be compromised by certain pressures from outside, and not necessarily making medical sound evidence-based sound healthcare decisions altruistically or with the benefit of the people in mind. And so it's important for people to have that, and I think we do have that within our community. I mean, we have the National Medical Association, Association of Black Cardiologists, we have Society of Black Academic Surgeons, the AMA, and so I think that it's important to be able to, yes, have those voices, but yet have other voices that can be able to relate and talk to the people in a way in which the people can understand it, and in which it's not necessarily intrusive, but a way in which it's comfortable and relaxed. Because some of the greatest conversations I have with my patients are, it's a dialogue. It's not so much me kind of preaching to them or telling them what the recommendations are, but me kind of hearing what's going on in their life, such that this is why they, it is what it is. And so to be, the best healthcare happens when there's a dialogue of situation. Because if the patient doesn't give me all the symptoms, or to their problem, I may be thinking one thing, but in reality, it's something else. And so to get some of those true symptoms, to get true healthcare, it does require a dialogue between individuals that feel comfortable. And, for us, we know that we feel comfortable when, someone has a sharp object to our scalp, or they're sitting up here, with a hot comb in their hand. So it's, we feel comfortable with those individuals because we spend a lot of, intimate and quality time. And my wife pointed out that, the training that hair care, professionals have to do is pretty, pretty extensive to a certain aspect, from the standpoint of being able to identify, certain features in people's hair after you're doing it for a prolonged period of time. Sometimes they're going to be the first individuals to pick up, someone has lupus, the first, a thyroid problem, with the thinning of the hair, alopecia, psoriasis, so, with the skin being the largest, organ system in our body, working with someone's scalp, and seeing that on a day-to-day basis, every 2 weeks, once a month. I mean, Black people will go to the hair care specialist, like clockwork. And so they become intimately known to what your scalp looks like. And so for that, especially also using chemicals and things of that nature on people's scalps, they have to understand a certain level of health, of healthcare, in particular to the field. And so with their board certifications, things of that nature, every state board is different. These individuals are, I would definitely trust them to sit up here and do a blood pressure cuff, or get a blood sample for an A1C, potentially a COVID-19 test or what have you, and kind of be our partners in healthcare. Because at the end of the day, that's what we as a community need. We just need more partners. We need more people looking out for the best interest of ourselves. And health is wealth. I mean, if you can't work because you don't have health, you can't get the things that we need to get to.
And it's actually a very good segue, right? When we talk about, being able to kind of trust, the people who are delivering the information and be able to accept it, right? Like, obviously a big proponent of yours is really helping to get more Black, especially Black men, right, in medicine, right? And so why has that been a goal of yours, right? Like, why are you so passionate about that, right? Like, this, obviously it should be obvious, but like, for our new listeners.
Like, for me, it's like, it's like seeing yourself, being able to go back to talk to the 5-year-old, the 6-year-old Stephen Noble, and I think that, I've been blessed, early on to realize, I wanted to do medicine, and people around me supported that. My grandparents, I fell in love in, the floor of my grandparents' living room, looking at the encyclopedia, just kind of seeing, one organ system over another. And so at a young age, I said, you know what, I wanted to be a doctor. And my family and my close network, held me to that, to the point of, I'd have friends that would say, no, you can't do this. This ain't right for you, because you're going to sit up here and go on this other path. So times in which I wanted to, go left,
Yes.
everyone was like, no,
that story sounds so familiar. That story sounds so familiar.
This path, and so high school was rough, because, you want to sit up there and be like everybody else and have that time. But, folks kind of like, no, you got to do this. And so I was fortunate to be surrounded by those individuals. And then in college and med school, kind of the same thing, a close network, my fraternity, and, other people. And so it was just great. And so medicine, I had mentors, I had individuals that could sit up here and I could see what the vision was. So at a young age, I had mentors. My mother, allowed me to, I was able to shadow her dermatologist. And so it was great. My parents were very, instrumental in trying to, kind of connect me with those individuals. And so I saw the power of that, and saw how I didn't get to, where I, to getting into college, med school, and residency by myself. So I needed help. And so it was really that notion of being able to reach and give back. And so, Gifted Hands to me was a seminal book that, when I read it, I could see it. Ben Carson could do it, I could do it, and I felt like, man, I had a better, elementary, experience than he did, and he became a neurosurgeon. I was like, no reason I can't, sit up here. So it really gave me that confidence. And so, fast forward to working with a comprehensive medical mentoring program, CMMP, serving as, on the board of directors of, organizations that really had a mindset of getting more Black folks into medical school, making more doctors, and then working with and meeting Dr. Dale Okurudu and Black Men in White Coats. I saw the video, and I'm one of those guys. If I see what you're doing and I like it, I'm just gonna reach out and be like, hey, how can I be down? Because we have to support those individuals that are doing great things for the community. And yes, yes, we can all sit up here and do our own separate thing. But when you see someone that's like, hey, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, they got a wheel. I can just help,
Yes,
push that wheel
100%,
further. And so,
100%.
I just really had a conversation with him, just fell in love with the idea of what he was doing, trying to produce a documentary. And I mean, he sold it as, I'm trying to produce the gifted hands of the next generation. And, when he said that, I was like, man, I'm sold, so let me support the documentary, because I think with media, the platform is so big, and when we see the outpouring for, individuals like Kobe Bryant and Chadwick Boseman when they pass, it's, having that media, having that stage, having that platform, even within the political sphere, having that platform to get your message out is important. And with the documentary to help on that was, just a blessing to be a part of. And any, individual that's really out there trying to promote Black health and improving Black health. I mean, it's ridiculous that, I mean, again, you said, us Black physicians, we're not surprised by, COVID-19. I mean, we're the industrialized country with one of the worst infant mortality rates. It was not a surprise that this was going to wreak havoc on, in our country. And a lot of it is, we don't take care of the most vulnerable. And our healthcare demonstrates that the most vulnerable in our society are Black women and by and large, and Black men, just really the Black community. So I applaud any, brother, sister, institution, organization that is really going to sit up here and take up the mantle. And so to that, kudos to you and other individuals, really having that platform to get the message out there. And so we learned that, with the AMA put out that study, we got to get more Black males to sit up here and do, what you're doing. Because it's more than just, writing the prescription, seeing the patient. It's doing what you're doing. It's having that platform to raise awareness in whatever way that you can, that these are issues that we should address.
I love it, and I think it's so poignant because I mean, again, the studies, and even if in conjecture we were thinking like, yeah, you know what, I think people would probably do better, especially if you're black, if you had a black physician, right? But of course, and you know how medicine does, right? Medicine always has to do a study to prove something that we could have told them like months ago, right? So of course they do these studies and they confirm, which was the obvious, like black patients who see black physicians, right, do better, right? Like again, it sounds simple, right? But again, they do this study to confirm what we already kind of knew from a common sense standpoint. So I love being able to, see, people like you, people like Dr. Dale, just kind of like, again, use the platform that being a physician is, right? And because again, you've already, from a societal standpoint, I've already hit the pinnacle, right? Like if you did absolutely nothing but saw your patients every day, people would say, nah, Dr. Noble's crazy successful, right? But the fact that you're having to go above and beyond, right, and saying like, no, like despite the fact that I'm here, right, like I'm still going to reach out, right, like I'm still going to be in these organizations, I still want to be in these shops, I still want to be a part of the groundwork, right, to try to bring more Dr. Nobles into the world of medicine and healthcare and really just life in general. It's such a commendable effort, right, that I think sometimes we don't get the kudos that we should, right? So that's why I always try to make it a point to like let folks know like, no, you're actually doing like an amazing work, even if while you're in the middle of the work you don't realize you're doing it.
No, that's beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's humbling, and I think that as my wife, I can't do this without my wife. I mean, she's amazing. We have 5 kids, and so it's just you realize that at the end of the day, our society's greatest asset are its children. Our children are what's going to sit up here and be here after we're gone. And shameful plug for again, one of the greatest movies ever, Black Panther.
We here.
It was that scene in the movie when he goes to the afterlife and he's talking to his father, Baba, and it's like, and his father just tells him, if I didn't prepare you for my inevitable, death, passing, I would have failed you as a father. And so I think that as we're slowly, kind of maturing into that generation, we're seeing a lot of our leaders become our ancestors. As we're slowly maturing into that, it's only right for us to sit up here and think about the inevitable, as far as we're going to sit up here and leave here, but what are we going to leave for the next generation? Who's going to carry the baton? And so I feel fortunate and blessed to have sat at the feet of my grandparents to kind of see what they kind of went through, to be able to pay attention to history and, things that the 1918 pandemic, knowing our story, knowing our past is important for us to navigate the future waters. And so, for me, this time is eerily similar to the 1920s and 1918. I mean, soon after that pandemic, we had a depression, and you also had prohibition of alcohol. I suspect we'll start to see prohibition of marijuana, things of that nature. So it's eerily similar to that time, and you got to ask yourself, how did those individuals negotiate and navigate it, and at the same time, how did they get through it, and what do we sit up here and teach our children or leave our children, the next generation? How do we prepare them? And our children are our greatest asset, and so to be able to help prepare, guide, and mold the next generation of Black physicians is a blessing, and it's a great responsibility to sit up here and try to help mold that, and it's exciting because what we're doing in medicine now, I mean, it's like we're at the precipice of like Star Trek type stuff, and so right. it's only I mean, when you start to see what we can do with robotics, with prosthetics. Elon Musk is sitting up here talking about, some sort of neural chip implant. I mean, it is just sci-fi. It's freaky. And so it's and seeing how our young kids are with technology and computers, and I mean, they're practically born with an iPad in their hand. It's just amazing to see how we're going to be able to mold and work with this next generation of young Black, boys and girls to become physicians. And so to that, I'm very passionate about that because growing up, I was a big sort of video gamer, even to this day, I play a lot of video games. And so, to have that with my kids, but to see that, robotic surgery is similar to that. So being able to combine esports, to, and the love of esports and gaming and things of that nature, and trying to inspire the next generation of physicians and potentially robotic surgeons to say, hey, look, you know what, I too can do it. So I don't mind playing Fortnite with kids. I'll be quick to watch a 6-year-old play Fortnite because I think it's just amazing to kind of see that. And with the advent of more esports scholarships, I mean, Robert Morris was one of the first universities to give out a scholarship for esports. So I think this is an avenue in which, we got to think outside the box of how do we get more kids into medicine. I think esports is that avenue, that plucking ground in which we can really get some great talent. I'm looking to, to have to be like the AAU of esports, and trying to find that, that young talent. 'Cause not all of them are going to grow up to be, multi-million-dollar esport video gamers, but one of them might be a robotic surgeon. One of them might be, working for the police or fire department, flying a drone overhead, and who knows, they may go to the military or do something with robotics. So I think it's a great avenue for our kids. Our kids are great and smart. You put, kids, they love technology. They love these gadgets. And so it's about supporting what they love to do. I've been fortunate and blessed to be surrounded by people that saw, my love for medicine and kind of support that. In this day and age, if kids have a love for video games, they can be supported. They can get scholarships. They're starting an HBCU esports league, right. So nice. Twitch. So nice. It's an exciting time.
Now, are you because I'm a video game person myself. Now, are you more of the sports competitive Call of Duty type, or like I can tell you, I'm more of the Last of Us, Spider. I'm more of that. Like I want to play an action game that like you might not see me for like 3 days because like I don't leave the spot because I'm just playing that one singular game. Are you more of the competitive action type, or do you like playing the solo type game? What are you? And then are you PS4 or Xbox? That's a better question.
Great question. So on PS4, on PS4, I'm a very sort of moody sort of video gamer. So I love playing some of my favorite games right now are Apex Legends, which is kind of a battle royale shooter game, Call of Duty. Fortnite is too complicated for me to play, so I really don't play Fortnite, but I love watching Fortnite. I do play Madden and 2K, and so I do love some of the sport games. But I do have those moments and those moods in which I like playing like Grand Theft Auto or Last of Us or some of those other sort of kind of immersive sort of games.
Yeah, I'll just get my wife hates me because I'll get lost in there. Like once she knows I'm playing, she's like, you playing video games? Like, there's no point to talk to me. I ain't doing no extra work. If I start that late night, I might wake up. I might look and be like 3-4 in the morning, and I'm still playing because it just. I'm just in it. Like, and I feel like, especially with the sports games, like I feel like if you don't play those consistently enough, folks be embarrassing you online, right? Yes, so I don't like the embarrassment online. So that's why I be like I see you, man. I know you're a good game, but like I don't have time to go through the learning and growing pains of learning how to play correctly. So I'm like more competitive when I'm out here playing.
I have no shame to admit that I have embarrassed my kids, my son and my nephew, playing with them on video games because I can hear the kids, the other kids talking about how bad is that person, and it's because I don't know, I just don't have a fast switch, fingers, and the aiming and pointing,
it's just a whole different. Okay, all right. Before I let you go, right? Before I let you go, what obviously, right? We're going into the last quarter of 2020, right? Like, so what are your plans, like, moving forward, right? And I mean, we might even have to start talking about 2021 if COVID-19 still, like, what's in the future for Dr. Noble?
So in the future, first and foremost, family, and so I think with that, we're looking at homeschooling our kids. And so, as I mentioned before, our son is a junior now. He's been homeschooling for the past year. So he was homeschooling before COVID-19. So for him, it's just, it's just another day at the office kind of. And for him, it's really, he misses the social aspect, but academically he's done better. And that's really, a function of him and my wife working hand in hand. It really takes the focus, it really puts the focus back on education and not so much the social interaction, whether it's with him and his friends, him and the teacher. It really hones down to him getting the work done. And to that point, he's gotten the best GPA that he's had, in high school, 3.4 GPA. And so, and I'm starting to see college recruiters with these esports teams trying to, recruit my son for their universities and stuff like that. So, esports for him has been good. It's going to be the home school, the e-curriculum has been good for him. For our daughter, she's going to do the same thing. It'll be interesting. She's more your sort of prototypical, 13-year-old, girls. And so she misses her friends. She wants to be in that sort of social space. So it'll be interesting to see. But I just don't see and don't trust any school board to really be able to put together a product quick enough and be flexible enough with the schizophrenic nature that we see coming from above, from the national response, the state response, and so on and so forth. So as a parent, I feel, and especially keeping, our ear to the ground as far as this whole COVID response and lack thereof, the best thing that we can do is try to control our own intimate environment. And we can do that by knowing first and foremost where our kids go, go to school. And for me, I am blessed. I'm privileged and fortunate. My wife, can work from home, does hair from home. So, I'm blessed and fortunate from that standpoint. But for the rest of the year, that's what we're looking at. So homeschooling for a year, and then, just really trying to, work as a thoracic surgeon. Again, just preventing lung cancer and heart disease. I'm fortunate the book that, I had talked about early on, looking to publish that and have that, we're finishing up the touches on that. And that's, it's a children's book. So it's a children's book. And so it's really a book about paying homage to a hero of mine, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. The first successful open heart surgery, in the world was done by a Black man, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. And is, one of the reasons as to why I think it's important for us to be able to tell our story. The whole thing about history is, someone telling his story, but I think, America has our story. I mean, we all have our different aspects of the story that make up who we are as a country. And this is an important piece of that, especially within medicine, how we got to this relatively young field in heart surgery with Daniel Hale Williams, what it was like to be a Black man growing up, as well as some of the first that he did, the first to join the American College of Surgeons, because they didn't want to let him in because he was Black. But again, he was heralded as having the first open successful heart surgery. And from that kind of led and supported, and his story in life was about giving back, mentorship. One of the things that he was proud about in his last years of life is going back to mentor and tutor the students at Meharry. And so when we talk about Black men and white coats in the lack of Black physicians, and you look at the Flexner report and how some of these universities were closed due to this report, how these HBCU med schools were closed, it's important to remember those individuals that did their part to kind of keep the legacy and keep the tradition going, to support the Meharrys and to kind of continue that legacy. So Dr. Daniel Hale Williams is an important man that any opportunity I get to mention, I feel honored to do, because of him, I'm here doing what I do, because he is the first of us of heart surgeon, and it's American, an American story. So that'll be coming out, and aside from that, just trying to make 2020 as best as it can be, and just live every day to its fullest, because we never really know, when he's going to call us. We just know that he's going to call us, and so we gotta do what we can to leave our mark each and every day. And I think for me, that's been the theme of kind of 2020. Quickly, when you just saw Kobe go, and then just seeing his passion that he had off the court with his family, with his daughters, it really kind of put us on notice that no day is promised. And so it was always reminded, COVID-19, kind of the same thing. We saw young people die with that. And then with Chadwick, you never really know what people are going through. And so we got to live each and every day to its fullest. And so although we may think we have a plan, God has the ultimate plan. And so it's just a blessing to kind of, be on this earth and kind of give what we can while we can.
Most definitely, and I think that really cinched it, because again, we have this plan, and a lot of times we're always thinking about, what are we going to do in the next 3 months, what are we going to do for the next year, right? And if something happens, like, oh, like, and then the question becomes like, what is your story, right? Once is that time, right? Like, did you do everything you can, right? Did you put all of your effort on a day-to-day basis, hour-to-hour basis, to make sure that your story and your legacy like really lives on? And I think we're seeing, especially, depending on when you listen to the Legendary Community, he actually just passed away about 2 days ago. So, just you seeing these stories, and you're seeing these, and you could just feel the void, right, that has been left, right. And the question that I have, for the listeners, right, especially those who, the goal is really to try to empower yourself and become better for yourself, to be better for others, right? Like, are you doing the work today, right, to make sure that you do leave a void and, an impact, right, in people's lives if you were to go today, right? Like, that's really the question at hand. And that question you should be asking yourself, right? Like, are you doing the work that would require such a void being left if you were to leave today?
Yeah, that's impactful. And, I think that it allows us to kind of take time to kind of reflect, as to, what our purpose is and what our why is. And, it's definitely one of those things, and being blessed to have that network, that group of people around me to kind of reflect that. And so, each and every day, it's a blessing to wake up and try to figure out the purpose of the day. And sometimes we do get into the mode of just trying to get through each hour, because depending on working the struggle, it's just like get through the hour, and you see folks in the elevator, and everyone has that collective look like today is one of those days. And so it's tough, and especially for some of us, especially at this time in which you see these images, and it becomes very difficult, as Black people, and as physicians, to kind of put on, one of the things I talked about as far as putting on a mask. I mean, we've been wearing a mask a lot during COVID-19, but to, to sit up here and on one hand see, a young Black male get killed for, things
go into his car.
People say, right.
Just normal stuff, normal
living
stuff.
life, just living life. And so it's putting on that mask that, regardless of if I put on my suit, if I put on my white coat, if I put on my badge, as soon as I walk out of here, I could sit up here and be killed living life, but yet having to compartmentalize and go into the hospital and do those things, treat patients, the way that you want to be treated, but all the while knowing that, it can be, your wife, your son, your daughter, being treated in a way in which is less than human, can be very taxing. And so, I think that it does allow us to sit up here and say, are we in situations, or are we, in a position, or is this day that we're living really, really purposeful as it could be, especially because at any moment it could be gone. And so, it's that's the challenge that we have. And, I try to do the best that I can each and every day. As Pastor Todd would say, I'm not perfect, but I'm progressing. And so,
yes, I love it.
I'm not perfect, but I'm progressing.
I love it. And Dr. Noble, thank you for, really enlightening us, really invigorating us, especially with the call of action, and showing us, right, that again, we don't have the excuse, right, to be too busy, right? Because obviously you're a person of yourself who's got plenty of work to do, right? Like I said, I know you just recently moved, you're starting a new place, new location, and you're right in the middle, but you're like, no, like the heart is heavy, right? The mind is heavy, right? I still have other stuff I have to do, outside of, again, just taking care of this person. So definitely appreciative of joining the Lunchroom community, and, really kind of lending your voice out. And obviously let us know, when the book comes out, we will definitely be promoting it on here, just to, make sure people are aware of that story.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, and thanks for this platform. And thanks for all the work that you do. Kudos to you and the rest of your team.
Thank you for coming to the end of the episode. It is yours truly, Dr. Pierre here. I want to give my undying thanks to you for your support. Just getting to the end of the episode means that you at least enjoyed today's episode. Hope you were empowered by today's episode. Please remember to share this episode with at least 2 people that you know that would be greatly affected if they did not listen to today's episode. And if you have not already done so, subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a 5-star review, especially on Apple Podcasts or wherever you can leave a review. Leave a review there because your support is so valuable for what we're doing here on the Lynch Learn and everything with Pierre Medical Consulting. And if you have not done so, go ahead and join the listserv. To join the listserv is very easy. Just grab your phone right now. I'll pause. Join the listserv. You want to text Lunch Learn Pod. This is all going to be one word, Lunch Learn Pod, to 44222. And you'll be on the listserv. You'll know exactly when new episodes are coming out. You'll know about new episodes before they actually come out, because I usually tell my listserv members, hey, this is what I'm working on. These are the guests that you should expect to hear for the week on. Thank you, guys. You have a blessed day, and I'm going to see you guys next week.